Hello, welcome to my August 2021 report on the solar PV, Powerwall and other electrical systems at our property in Huntingdonshire in the United Kingdom. This opening graph shows the electrical energy coming in from our two solar arrays and from the grid. The system specifications are shown in the description below the video. The total solar production this month was 619 units, a daily average of 20 units. The second half of the month has been very dull in this part of the country, with 8/8 high pressure cloud coming in from the North Sea on most days. 167 grid units were imported in total, with just 7 of those units at peak rate. Most of the 160 night rate units were used to boost the Powerwall to see it through the following cloudy day. On the final day of the month, the car received its first overnight boost of 28.5 units, as the solar couldn't provide all the energy required. 22 units were exported to the grid. That was 2.8% of the total energy coming into the property and 3.6% of the solar energy produced. The second graph shows where the energy consumed by the property and the car came from. The figures driving this graph are mainly supplied by the Tesla app, with the car charging figures coming from the My Energy app. These numbers will not agree perfectly with the numbers obtained from the meters due to measurement errors. Just over 51% of the energy came directly from solar, and a further 26.4% of solar came via the Powerwall. Despite the gloom, the sun therefore provided nearly 78% of our electrical energy during the month. Over 115 of the solar units went via the zappi into the car, a few units at a time on many days of the month, shown by the checkered sections at the top of the bars on the graph. The grid units on the 31st and a couple of free destination charges led to the 478 miles travelled during the month, costing just over half a pence per mile. The Tesla app for iPhone had a major refresh just before the end of the month. Fortunately, the app has not updated on my wife's phone, so I was able to screen grab the last few daily energy graphs in the old format. This was the graph for home consumption on the 30th, showing the total energy used and the percentage to one decimal place derived from solar, the Powerwall and the grid. The number of units from each source were calculated in the spreadsheet from these figures. Here is the energy graph for the same day in the updated app, with home selected. The same colours as before have been used for each of the 4 components. The 4 graphs can only be seen one at a time, rather than being able to select from 1 to 4 superimposed graph, as in the old app. Percentages are shown at the bottom, but now only correct to the nearest integer rather than one decimal place. The number of units from each source are shown on the screen, so no longer need to be calculated in the spreadsheet. I'm not sure I like the new representation of vertical scale, where the maximum and minimum numbers is shown on the right. Pressing this symbol, consisting of 3 broken vertical lines, near the top of the screen, then reveals how the other 3 components, the solar, the Powerwall and the grid, contributed to the selected component, which is obviously home. These 3 are stacked rather than superimposed, so that is why the shape of the graph doesn't change. This is the solar graph, obviously with a different vertical scale to the home graph, and the same graph showing the 3 destinations of the solar energy through the day. On this occasion it is hard to see the small export to the grid. Selecting Powerwall brings up this screen with the green graph, below which is a new graph representing the state of charge of the battery through the day. It would be nice to be able to move a vertical line across the graph, as in the old app, to see the value being plotted at any particular time. Touching the 3 line symbol changes the graph to show the input from the grid and from solar below the horizontal axis and output to the property above the axis. My problem with this screen is that the figure for units discharged from the Powerwall, 9.1 kilowatt hours, is repeated at the top and bottom, and there is no display of the number of units put into the battery from the grid or the total. Logic suggests to me that the central figure at the bottom of the screen should show a from grid figure, next to the from solar figure. At the moment, the from grid figure, and hence the total energy going into the Powerwall, has to be calculated from other figures displayed on the various graphs. Finally, selecting grid shows the grid graph for the day, and the interaction with the other 3 components can be seen. The 2 flashes of yellow below the axis show the small amount of export of solar to the grid around midday. I do like the extra insight provided by these new graphs, but wish they were a bit bigger. I wouldn't mind having to scroll down to see the figures which currently occupy, and some might say clutter, part of the screen. Back to the usual report. This graph shows the energy going into and coming out of the Powerwall each day as reported by the Tesla app. Just under 90% of the energy that went in during the month came back out. And here's the self-power graph based on figures from the Tesla app, which reported that the proportion of self-power was 86.6%, with the lowest daily value on the 31st when the car was given a boost from the grid. This graph shows the Solar Southwest production over the years since 2012. The monthly figure of 359 units makes it tie with 2015 as the equal worst August out of the 10 years. The arithmetic mean for August now stands at 407.3 and the median is 412. The cumulative Solar Southwest total over the first 7 months of the year was 2,671 units, which drops 2021 down to 8th place out of the 10 years up to this point. Here's the daily output of the two solar arrays for the past 365 days. The 28-day moving average lines ended up slightly below where they were a year ago. Let's hope for an upturn in September as there was last year. Here's a glance at the distribution of the energy input for the past 365 days and the daily solar production for that same period. Finally, this is the summary graph for our grid electricity usage since we moved here in the summer of 2011. The need to feed the electric car over the winter months will make the grey off-peak grid line climb higher than in previous years. The monthly electricity bill has risen to £24.67, including the standing charge, and the feed-in tariff payment for the month will be less than usual for August. That's it for now. I'll leave you with the energy usage graphs from the Tesla app for each day of August, probably the last time you'll see them in this format, and hope to see you again next month.